This is George Forlaga. Welcome to the Get It Done in 120 Days Writing and Publishing program. This will be the first session. So let's agree on something basic. So while the program runs for 2 months or about 8 weeks, for the first 4 weeks, this will consist of the live or broadcast sessions. The second month will consist of you writing your book. So that means that you'll be expected to write today, beginning from week 3 or 4, or even from week 5, depending on when you feel ready. So for more efficient, so writing really is a very easy process. It's simply about planning and recording your knowledge and experience, which already exists all in your head. All you have to do is unlock or unleash all those years of knowledge and experience you've accumulated and simply put it down on paper. So a lot of reasons why people get stuck get caught one thing that I do, just write, don't edit, and try not to move things find yourself getting lost in the middle of the process. The most important exercise you'll find a lot of powerful and effective books, the ones that really resonate with audiences, are the kind of books that have a lot of stories in them. So between 40 to 70% of your book will consist in stories which will reinforce your main ideas. And your main ideas or your key points will consist of between 30 to 60%. So the more stories you have, the more interesting your book becomes. That's a little secret that you need to know early on. So in relation to stories, what I'd like you to think about, if you can take the next few minutes or seconds to think about and even write, what stories will you include in your book? So if your book, for example, is about leadership or quality or happiness, for example, what stories in your own life or in the lives of people around you are you going to include? So these don't have to be your own. They can be stories you've heard. The important thing is that to be true. So jot down, 3 to 4 or 5 stories or even more that you think you're going to use for your book. You might end up using 50 to 100 stories even. But for now, just think of a few stories that you might want to include. Just use the titles if you want. It could be the story of Jack and his Labrador Retriever, or Martha and her car, something like that. So just tag it, uh, give it a title, and then you can refer to it later on. So these stories will form the backbone of your book. Okay, so let's talk about the business side of your book. So why are we talking about it now? Well, you may want to consider that deciding to talk about your book or have a conversation about, in other words, marketing your book once it's already done, is not the most effective way to create interest. For example, a friend of mine just finished writing her book, which I believe took her between 6 to 8 months. Um, and when she told me about it, that she had finished it, it already had a cover, it had already been edited. In other words, it was complete. So when she mentioned it to me, she said, George, hey, take a look at my book. It's finished. What do you think? So I wasn't very excited about it because, okay, you wrote a book, great. Uh, I looked through it, it was well written, but it would have been different if she had involved me from the beginning. My excitement would have been way more, probably 100 times more. If she had told me about it before she even started writing it. But telling me about it after the fact kind of reduces the impact. So keep in mind that you need to build your mailing list very early. Um, it's important to get people excited, just like my friend needed to get me excited by announcing the fact that she's about to write a book. So who are the people that you need to give a heads up? Well, these would be ambassadors. These would be people who will end up giving you Amazon reviews, and also people who will end up buying your book. You'll also need to get endorsers excited. Well, these are people who are also reviewers, except the difference between them and the Amazon reviewers is that they're gonna write the reviews at the back of your book. Um, so that's very important. And then third, the event organizers. So start thinking about where you're going to speak once you write your book. Because if you're writing a how-to book, most likely a certain number of people will want to benefit or read from your book and find out how they can implement some of your ideas. So what associations, companies, organizations can you think of that can book you as a speaker, whether paid or free? So start thinking about that and give them a heads up that you're about to write a book. And finally, think about your writing team. Who's going to help you finish your book? Obviously, you're going to need, an editor or editors, a cover designer, proofreader, interior designer, someone who's going to help you with the layout of your book. You'll need at least 2 to 3 to about 5 people to help you complete your book. So start thinking where you're going to find these people. So personally, for me, writing the book is the easy part. Guess what the hard part is? Well, if you guess marketing, you're right. Marketing is the toughest part. So imagine if you already had your book on your desk. You're looking at it. Cover is done, it's professionally created. Your book's already printed. It's been professionally edited. What are you going to do with it, right? What do you want people to do now that you're an author? Do you want them to buy a lot of copies? Do you want to make money as a speaker? Do you want to do courses related to your book or workshops? So I want you to think about that piece this early because you're going to start thinking about them anyway at some point. And a lot of authors who write books and then kind of miss the opportunity to make a lot of money. The reason for that is they think about all these things after the book's already printed. But if you think about all these things now, then it'll help you create more buzz, more excitement around your book. So let's talk about those back cover blurbs and Amazon reviews. Let's talk about the timing. So when it comes to the Amazon reviewers and cover blurb writers, best time to start telling them is now, just before you even start writing a word, your first draft. And then when you ask them to submit their back cover blurbs, well, the Amazon reviewers just have to read your book, but they don't have to submit Amazon reviews to you in advance. Obviously, they do that once your book is out. But for the back cover blurb writers, which could be 3 to 5 people, they need to send it to you earlier before your book is printed because you need those blurbs to include in the final printing of your book's cover. So those 3 to 5 people have to give their blurbs to you in advance. So they may have to read your book a little bit earlier, maybe a month earlier than everybody else. While the Amazon reviewers, they have to finish reading your book probably 2 to 3 weeks before your release. Because once your book is released, that's when they write the Amazon review after they purchase your book. But for the back cover blurb writers, remember these have to be in about a month earlier than the Amazon reviewers. So when do you collect them? Uh, Again, 2 to 3 weeks before you release your book, launch it on Amazon, or release a printed copy if ever you decide to release printed copies. So takeaway is back cover blurb reviewers first, probably a month before you launch your book, and the Amazon reviewers they have to be ready a week or two before you actually launch your book. They need to have finished reading your book, and they need be able to be ready to submit their Amazon reviews online. So here's some examples of Amazon reviews. That's number one. So basically, it'd be great if it were positive. So they have to share their opinion. So what you can do is even give them this, tell them, hey, this is a sample of an Amazon review. Maybe you could pattern yours similar to this, right? So you've got two of them for the Amazon reviews. The back cover blurb examples are almost identical. Maybe the only difference would be that they would uh, encourage people to buy. So there's a positive review plus the encouragement to buy. Like you look at the last line of the first back cover blurb sample. If you want to be ready to face life's challenges, get this book. Basically, that's the only difference between a back cover blurb and an Amazon review. Amazon reviews don't need to encourage people to buy the book, although some of them do. But with back cover blurb writers, it's almost a given that they should encourage other readers or potential readers or buyers of your book to purchase it. I mean, that's the whole point of getting them in the first place. They're supposed to uh, endorse your book and influence people to buy. So you've got four samples here, two each. And let's talk about what a book is and isn't. So a lot of people talk about a book as being a baby. I don't entirely agree with that description. To me, a book is like an employee. It's an employee that generates money. In fact, to me, a book is a business. And one great and easy way to earn money from your little business that's about to be created is to get on a stage and do some public speaking. Because a lot of public speakers are paid. So think of your book as a tip of a very lucrative iceberg. With a book as kind of the tip of the iceberg, it's kind of an introduction to you and your brand, and the bottom of the iceberg is the source of a very huge amount of income. For example, could be had from speaking. So we'll explore other avenues later on, but just think about your book as like that. It's an employee. It's not a baby. So what is a book supposed to do? Well, on one hand, the book's supposed to entertain, maybe educate. But really, uh, a book's job, to me anyway, is to generate ongoing sales. Either through sales of the book itself, or for people hiring you as a speaker or as a consultant. Another thing that your book can do is to help build your mailing list. So your mailing list is the people who will become fans of your philosophy or your ideas. And they'll also certainly become fans of your second, third, fourth, and future books. So think of your book as the beginning of many more products, information products for you to come. Because you may write more books or you may conduct workshops and courses. So again, the book is just an introduction. And also, a book also makes you a thought leader and an influencer. And by having a book, you attract other influencers, right? So not only should you think about building a mailing list of buyers, you should also include in that mailing list some influencers, which means could be other authors or other owners of big mailing lists, and you can joint venture with them. Last but not least, when you have a book, then you're a go-to expert, right? Because you must know what you're doing because, well, you wrote a book about it, and that's not an easy task. Okay, so here's how you can monetize your expertise. Remember how I told you that your book is just the tip of the iceberg? Well, let me show you the bottom of the iceberg, the lucrative part. So a lot of keynote speakers make big money just from delivering 1.5 hour, 2 hour talks. So the Bill Clintons of the world will make about six figures, 100, 150 and up. The ones who are semi-famous, like Colin Powell, Jimmy Carter, former presidents, but they were president 20 to 30 years ago, famous generals. Um, these people generate between $25,000 and up. And then on the low end, you have 3 to 5,000. So really, decent speaker with a book or books, it's not unusual for them to generate between $8,000 to $12,000 for an hour and a half. So, for example, if you average, $10,000 per talk, and you did one a week, and I'm talking about just one evening, right? There's 52 weeks in a year. Let's say times 50, right? So you did one talk a week times 50 weeks, just doing it part time for an hour a week, 4 hours a month. That generates you half a million. Not a bad way to make money part time, 4 hours a month. So you can see the possibilities here. There's also corporate training where you can easily make between $3,000 to $5,000 for a day's worth of workshops. So if you were to deliver, for example, one workshop a week, so 8 hours, you charge 5 grand. So if there were 50 weeks, or even just 40 weeks, for example, 40 times 5,000, that's 200,000. So 200,000 for speaking just one day out of the week. So that still leaves you with 4 days. For the keynotes, you can do in the evening. So there are also like workshops or programs you can do between 1 and 3 days, depending on how much you charge. Let's say you charge $1,000 a day, for example. All of the math really depends on you, the content, and the value that you deliver. But if you were to deliver, for example, one workshop a day a week, so for 1,000, so over four weeks, that's 4,000 times 12. That's 48. So if you deliver 2 days, 48 out of a week, $2,000 a week times 4, 8 grand times 12, that's 96. If you deliver 3 days, $3,000 a week. So depending on the price, that's the number. Expert definitely charge more. You can charge between $300 to $500 an hour. So again, if you charge $500 an hour and have a work for one whole day, that's 4,000 right there for just for a day's worth of coaching, one-on-one consultation. So depending on how many hours or how many days a week that you work, so that 8,000 could be 400,000 if you charge or if you work one day out of the whole week. Of course, there's the membership website. We can charge anywhere from $10 to $99 a month for people to join your membership website. So if you had, for example, 50 people paying $100, so that's $500 a month times 12. That's what is that? 6,000. So if you charge double that, if it's $200, then 12K. So depending on what you choose from here, you can choose one or you can choose a combination. There's a lot that you can do with your book. The book is just essentially an introduction to your list of services. So if you haven't thought about the kind of services that you can deliver, maybe now's a good time to think about it. Really, the book itself is just an entry point for lots of income generating activities. So basically, the takeaway is that you try and sell your books one copy at a time, and then you make anywhere from $1 to $5 per book. You sold 100 books a week, so that's 500. What is that? $5 times 100, that's $500 a week. So $500 times, let's say, 50 weeks, that's only $25,000. You earn that by making 2 or 3 keynote speeches for 3 hours. So that's what I mean when going wholesale, charging a multiple per hour as a result of offering workshops, courses, speaking is more bang for your buck than trying to sell books like you would sell cupcakes or t-shirts. You'd have to sell thousands and thousands of books to make the same kind of money that you would make delivering courses, workshops, or keynote speaking. And you get the best seller status faster. Actually, if whenever you do a corporate workshop, for example, you bundle maybe 100 or 500 or 1,000 books every time you deliver a workshop or a course within someone's company. That's how you rack up sales rather than trying to sell it one copy at a time at a bookstore. That model is a little bit outdated now. It's tougher because you have more competitors, right? So think about charging as a speaker, coach, workshop leader, or program facilitator. It's a lot more lucrative. So how do you build your million strong base of fans? Well, it used to be is you tried to sell 1 million copies of books. Now there's a more efficient way to do it. Instead of selling now to 1 million random people, a better way to do it is to find 1 to 2,000 rabid fans, the kind of fans who will buy everything you produce, who will attend every course you deliver, or attend every workshop you give. So those 1,000 to 2,000 people will spread the word and tell their 1 to 2,000 followers. So if you multiply 1,000 by 1,000, then that's how you get to 1 million. So the name of the game now is locating a smaller but loyal fan base, getting the contact info, including them in your database. In other words, making sure that they join your mailing list, and then staying in touch. And then they'll spread the word for you. So when you have a website that features you and your book, it doesn't have to be complicated. You can start with a one page at the beginning. Make sure you have a squeeze page, especially just before you launch your book until probably a month after you launch your book, just to collect names of people who will want a sneak preview, who you may want to share maybe the first chapter. That will build interest and curiosity in your book. And of course, once your book is launched, a month after, you can take out a pop-up box. But while you're writing a book, it's not a bad idea to have it, just to give people a way to sign up. Another way to build that fan base is to think about if you can write a monthly e-newsletter or blog. You don't have to do one a week or twice a month even. Once a month is fine, just to let people know that you know what's happening along your journey. If you have a blog that you start as you write your book, maybe starting doing one post a week, 100 words, 50 to 100 words. Today I started my book. Then week 2, finish 500 or 1,000 words of my book. So you can taper that off once your book is done. But having a blog post between 1 and 4 times a month, right? So 12 times a year if you're not too crazy about it. But one a week obviously would be ideal. But find a frequency that you're comfortable with and stick with that. That will help build followers. And those influencers or thought leaders, other authors, other big mailing list owners. So I talk about big mailing list owners. These are people with lists of 1,000 or more, 5,000 names or more, 10,000 names or more. It's also important to connect with people like that because these are people who would like to promote, other authors, other experts, because some of them like to make money by doing joint ventures, sharing revenue. So my suggestion is in your own network, right? And they say that everyone has a natural network of 2,000 people. So in my case, I figure I'm close to about 400 or 500 people, right? So out of that 400 or 500 people that you're close to, who of those people are influencers? People that you know are avid networkers or connectors, and they have probably 1,000 people or more in their mailing list. If you don't have a lot of those, I suggest that you go out and try and get acquainted with connectors that you don't know. So from the few connectors that you do know, try and ask them who else they know are connectors, people with big lists, people are authors or experts. A lot of experts usually have big mailing lists. Try to connect with someone that you don't know at the rate of one a week, so that at the end of a year, you know 50 new influencers. These are people who will help you build your brand. So think of some names of people who you know are networkers or connectors who may have big mailing lists. You may know two or three or a little bit more. Uh, get in touch with them and then ask them to recommend other influencers in their networks. They would probably know at least 3 to 5 as well. Okay, so now let's talk about your target audience. So what kind of pain or frustration? Your point of view is going to change. So there you have and creating a backstory. So I'd like you to take 2 or 3 minutes. Think about, well, what is it that gets you out of bed, right? What is your why? What would you be doing even if you weren't paid to do it? What is your passion? Because your passion is going to help you connect with those 1,000 to 2,000 rabid fans. If you want to connect authentically, genuinely, and very strongly with 1 to 2,000 people, you better have a strong passion about something, right? So think about, well, what's the change that you want to make in the world? How different do you want it to be as a result of writing your book? So maybe to help you figure out your motivation, think of your reasons from the last 10 years or so. And then think of your reasons from your earlier childhood or teen years, right? What led you to writing your book? What led you to wanting to make that kind of change and put yourself out there as an expert and thought leader? Finally, how are people going to change or transform by reading your book? So this is going to be your backstory, right? Why I wrote this book. This is what happened to me when I was young, and this led me to this path, and this encouraged me to put down all my thoughts, my experiences, maybe my years of accumulated wisdom to share with you, so that hopefully, you will do, blank. Okay, so think about that, and then for over the next weeks, actually over the next year, I'd like you to think about constantly networking with people who are going to buy your book. Remember, you have to tell everyone you know that you're about to write a book, right? These will be people who will purchase your book on Amazon and give you a review. And second, you have to think about uh, thought leaders and influencers. These are people who will spread the word and create that buzz. And some of those influencers may even be able to write those back cover blurbs, right? So second, think JV, joint venture. So in joint venture, not you're going to be an author. That means you're going to be an influencer and thought leader, right? So first job is to connect with other influencers and thought leaders and try and think of ways you can help them and that they can help you. That's what cross promotion means essentially. And if you want, so if you're considering writing a blog, maybe you can even do a video blog, a vlog. So when you write about other influencers, again, this is the called the you I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So you interview them. Well, what makes you an expert? What makes you successful? As you ask other influencers, right? And then once they find out that you're featuring them in a video blog, they're going to be blown away and like, wow, you're going to do that for me, great, because you're essentially promoting them. So once you promote them, they're going to reciprocate and say, okay, so how can I help you? That's your opportunity to do an ask. Now, if you've done something for someone, you can ask for them to, well, can we do a joint venture? Is there a way that you can promote my book or workshop or whatnot to your mailing list? And they'll say, sure. I mean, is there going to be a kind of some kind of revenue sharing model? So typically, you give them a cut of your profits. That's how joint ventures work. Anywhere from 10, 20 to as much as 50% or higher in some cases. But that's how joint ventures in a nutshell work. And then connect with corporate decision makers, meaning people who work at human resources departments in various companies, people in marketing, people in sales. Connect with chambers of commerce or boards of trade. They like to feature speakers in their monthly events. Typically, for nonprofits, there's no pay, but for the first 4 to 6 months that you're an expert, you don't have to wait for your book to come out. By the way, you can do it beginning now. You can get practice. So by the time your book comes out in 4 to 6 months, you can start charging companies and associations for your services. BNI is Business Network International. It's a group that meets weekly. HOBN is High Output Business Network, which you may or may not have in your city. It's kind of similar to BNI, where the members meet every week to pass referrals to each other. It's also a great way to practice 60-second elevator speeches, and sometimes you're asked to do a 10-minute speech. Now, Toastmasters is another great way to practice being on a stage. Anything that puts you in contact with other people, with other influencers, and allows you to practice how you speak is always a great opportunity. So also think about creating a blog, which I mentioned before, a Twitter page, because it's a very fast and efficient way to communicate in short bursts, right? E-newsletters still work. So organizing all of these, newsletter, blog, Twitter page, that's essentially your platform. That's how you broadcast your thoughts to the world. Okay, so connect with strategic partners. So try and think about your list, and you may want to subdivide it into business and personal, right? So these will be, I like to call them your top strategic partners. Strategic in that they're there to support you, help you move forward. And the key to enlisting their support is letting them know right up front, hey, this is what I have planned. I would love to get your help. When you give people a heads up, the more that they can consider, okay, so this looks like a worthy cause, a good project to support. And you know what? People do want to help or support worthy causes. You know what? If you're aiming to change the world, that's why you need to get a handle on what your why is. Because if you're able to paint a beautiful picture of how much better the world will be, hey, who's not going to sign up for that? Right? I mean, most likely your peers and your friends are. I mean, that's why they're hanging out with you, because birds of the same feather flock together. So you want to change the world in the same manner that they also want to change the world. So if you can show them and paint a compelling picture of how much better life will be as a result of your book, shoot, they're going to be on board. And also consider that people from your personal and business networks will probably be the source of good reviews, right? If people know you, support you, trust, and more importantly, trust you, well, they're most likely going to trust whatever you come up with. And most likely they're going to give you a favorable review. Now, the secret you might want to find out is the reason why some authors have a lot of 4 or 5-star reviews on Amazon is that the first 100, 200 reviewers that you see there are most likely their friends and network. A lot of people, or first-time authors, make this mistake. They write a book, amazing, life-changing, and then they don't tell anyone. They launch the book. When you look at it, there's 0 reviews, maybe 2 reviews, or 3 reviews. And I don't want you to make that rookie mistake. I want you to give your entire network a heads up, get them excited, and tell them, hey, you know what? I may ask for your help, and I may ask you to write a review. Most of them are going to say, yeah, shoot. That's why we're friends. No problem. So again, a book is a great way to enlist people back into your life. It's funny. There are people that I hadn't spoken to for 10, 15, some even 20 years. The minute I said, you know what, sorry I haven't kept in touch. My fault. I take the blame. Just wanted you to know I'm writing a book, change your world. Hoping, support. Hope you don't mind. I would really love to kind of stay in touch. It's amazing. Love to work with you. Love to yeah, sure. Why not? You might, movement, scholars, leaders, or buyers who hopefully that's list as many of them as you can this early. Okay, so that concludes session 1. Um, be ready for session 2 and 3, which are both going to be a little bit over an hour. So that's the intro to our course. Looking forward to seeing you for the next session. Thank you very much, and see you soon.